Hello, students. Today, Mr. Armstrong teaches clauses of the independent and dependent varieties. We'll be looking at some definitions and some examples. This lesson is designed to help out with a couple of future lessons involving sentence types, namely simple sentences, compound sentences, complex sentences, and compound complex sentences. Those will be dealt with in future videos, but to understand those, it's going to be a lot easier if we first understand independent clauses and dependent clauses. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get started. Definitions. A group of words that contains a subject and a verb, or sometimes thought of as subject and predicate. Often we might think of this as being a complete sentence, but as we're going to learn, sometimes there could be another word involved that turns a complete sentence into an incomplete sentence. We'll look at why. It has to do with clauses. Did you write that definition down? I hope so, because there's two more. Next up, we have a definition for an independent clause. An independent clause is a clause that can stand by itself. It's independent. It doesn't need anything else. Thank you very much. It is also considered a complete thought, and these, indeed, in fact, can be complete sentences. They can stand all by themselves. They do have a subject, they do have a predicate, and also they are complete all by themselves. Independent. Did you write it down? One to go. And finally, we have the dependent clause. So this depends on other things. This is not independent. It is a clause that cannot stand by itself. It does not express a complete thought. They are often considered to be embedded in other clauses. But essentially, while they have a subject and a verb, a subject and a predicate, they have something else, some other word that makes them depend on something else. And usually what they depend on is an independent clause. The dependent clause leans on the independent clause. Okay, now that we've got a few definitions handy, let's take a look at some examples. And hopefully things will become even more clear. All right, so take a look at these over here. These are examples of independent clauses. And I think as you read them or as you hear them, you will understand how these could in fact be complete sentences. They could be complete thoughts. Grandpa is hungry, period. That's the end of the thought, right? We don't need to know anything else. Just like we want to go. We want to go. It's a complete thought. It's independent. We is the subject. Want is a verb. To go is an infinitive verb. We have a subject, we have a predicate. Or, that cheetah runs fast. Once again, this could be a complete thought. It could stand all by itself and be a complete sentence. Cheetah is the subject, runs is the verb. Runs fast is the predicate. These are independent clauses. We could add other clauses to these. We could add another independent clause. We could add dependent clauses. But this, in and of itself, is independent. It can stand alone and be a complete thought, a complete sentence. Next, let's look at dependent clauses. So here are some examples of dependent clauses. And these all start with a type of word called a subordinating conjunction. Subordinating conjunctions are plentiful. There's a whole bunch of them. We'll look at a list of them once we start looking at some complex sentences and complex compound sentences. But just know that these are words that often are at the start of dependent clauses. So the first one, if you can dance, yes, then what? It's that word if at the beginning, a subordinating conjunction, that makes this dependent on something else. If you can dance, then what? Right? It needs something else. If we removed the word if we removed that subordinating conjunction, you can dance is a complete thought, is an independent clause. But that word if makes this dependent on something else. Just like, before the sun goes down, yes, don't leave me hanging. What's going to happen before the sun goes down? Tell me! It's not complete. There's something missing. We would need an independent clause. But once again, if we removed that subordinating conjunction before, the sun goes down is an independent clause. Just like with, although he didn't win. Although he didn't win, what? He still had a good time? He learned something valuable? What happened? Even though he didn't win. What? It depends on something else. We need more information. This gets a little confusing sometimes, and I see this in student writing quite a bit, because a lot of times we might speak this way as a complete thought, right? If we were answering a question usually, Am I going to have fun at the wedding? If you can dance. Or, when do I need to be home? Before the sun goes down. We speak that way a lot. But that doesn't mean that we are speaking in complete sentences. We are technically speaking in dependent clauses. In those instances, though, you can kind of think about it as those answers depend on the question. But if you're just composing a sentence without that question, if it's not an answer to a question, then these are dependent clauses and they need more. They need an independent clause to be attached to them in some way. If you can dance, then you're going to have a great time. Before the sun goes down, we eat dinner. Although he didn't win, he learned a valuable lesson. Learning. It's the best. But alas, that is the end of Learning Fun Times today. This has been a brief presentation of clauses, independent and dependent, two types of clauses that are going to be important in the future lessons involving simple and compound sentences and complex and compound complex sentences. Look for those in the coming weeks. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, you can post them in the comments below or ask me in class. I look forward to teaching you again very soon. Have a great day.